What is up? It's the Figure Hunter out on the trail, and I am going to talk about the Ultrahuman ring today. It's sort of an initial review. There's so much to say, so much to see, that most of this is just going to be sort of a dive into the software and looking at the details of some of the things it brings to the surface. Its primary tenets are movement, like how much you're moving, and I'll talk about that in a second. Your recovery, how much you recovered over the last night's sleep, and then your sleep itself. Plus, it just couples in just a bunch of data. So one of the primary things that's fantastic about the Ultrahuman ring is that it's compared to especially like the Oura ring or, the circular ring. I think the circular ring's got some design factor problems from other reviews I've heard. And I have tested the Oura ring, and if we were to compare them head to head just out of the gate here, I would say the Ultrahuman gives you all the same data and a lot more, or more detailed data if you want to have access to it, if you want to see it. It comes in at a better price structure to me, and it comes in at a better form factor. So the Oura ring has, if you want the base price one, you have to get the one with the knob on it, like the, flat side. If you want the circular version, you have to pay more. And then if you want a matte black version, you have to pay more. And, just right out of the gate, the Ultrahuman has, it's still got some shine to it, but it has an option that's circular, that's relatively slender, and simple form factor for their base price of $350. So I have just really liked the pricing structure of the Ultrahuman over the Oura. We gotta skip past some water features. It's been raining the last couple days. So the details that you can get with the Oura, so the recovery and then the sleep. So those are the primary tenets. So the movement index, the recovery, and the sleep. But it also just gives you data, like wealth of data across the board, all sorts of different data pieces you can dive into. There's charts you can get into, there's spectrum, you can get into kind of anything. And it really does a great job at just giving you access to a lot of data and seeing your data compared to previous period ranges or previous period averages, and that really helps. So those are the positives that I like. I think the form factor is fine. I think it's comfortable. It doesn't really bother me that much unless, I don't use it for working out, and we'll talk about that in the cons, but all right, so here's the basics of the landing page. It really is big on stimulant window. So for the first 90 minutes that you're awake, it's don't take in stimulants. And then it says stimulants available. And then it says phase out later in the day. You get notifications for it. Here's your movement index. Really, the movement index is just how much you moved around, how much you're just walking. And obviously steps is a big part of that, generic calories. But it's not really taken into account activity exactly, because it's hard to track workouts with the ring, in my opinion. Sleep index. So sleep obviously takes in a bunch of different factors. You can see the summary of the primary factors up top. You can see the contributors in green, and then all the different aspects that it takes into account. You can see your movement periods, your heart rate over different periods of time, heart rate variability, and your temperature. So it's taken into account multiple things. The best thing about this is just, you really can see a lot of information. And then in any of these top parts, you can, dive into, particular trends if you wanted to see, trends in any way, shape, or form. And then the last piece is the recovery score. This is another primary piece, at least. And it takes into account, you can do your own answer up top. It takes into account multiple different sort of subsets. Again, the movement index, that's super annoying, just because the movement index is based on how much you walked around, not taking into account activities. But you can really, you can get into a lot of nitty gritty with this sort of stuff, and you can scroll across time if you want to see your averages. It's really helpful, and it breaks it down in multiple different detailed ways. all of these things you can dive into further. If you wanted to see your skin temperature, you could see that over periods of time in each of these capacities. So you can take any of these data pieces and look at it over a long period of time. And then at the bottom, it continues to, talk about, cardiovascular fitness is just an estimate. It's not really anything that I've found useful. Neutral impact of light and activity. So it does your, light and activity markers, your heart rate and skin temperature at any time. So that can just take it across different spectrums of time. And then your HRV as it relates to just sleeping. Smart goals, timeline, and then at the bottom is where you would have any activities. And if you were to look at an activity, it's rudimentary, somewhat simple. And there you have it. So there is the full spectrum of what you would see on that. One thing I forgot to mention that's actually huge is that it will write your heart rate variability from your sleep data to Apple Health, and that can be used for a wealth of other apps and applications. So it'll write the sleep, it'll write the HRV during sleep, which not many devices do, and that's actually a big additional plus, a big additional pro, because then you can use a multitude of Apple apps to be able to assess and analyze your last night's sleep or your last night's HRV, which ties into all the recovery aspects. So it actually could be useful for using it on multiple applications, because it's one of the few devices that actually writes the HRV measurements to the Apple Health. Those are the things that are really nice features about it, and it does great in. And the cons, so like the things that I've run into that are a problem, and this is just an initial review, is that just like Oura, the scores that I get are not reflective. Without a doubt, the scores I get on the sleep and on the recovery are not reflective. And we can take a look at one particular set of nights right now and come back together. All right, so here's a perfect example of how it can be off. So I got a sleep score of 82 and a recovery score of 86, and it is saying feeling the energy, and the answer is absolutely not. Not feeling the energy. 82, 86, because if you look at the other metrics, my body battery only went up to like 30 last night, and Whoop has got me at 23% recovered, and Superset's got me at 13% recovered. So all the other devices that are tracking it off the basic metrics, I went to bed late. I had alcohol and a ton of food, and so I was plummeting. I feel like I went to bed late and had those problems, and it's saying, my heart rate went up as I slept, because I was just recovering from a bad workout yesterday or a hard workout yesterday. So in no way is this indicative of my recovery or my readiness to train or my sleep and quality of sleep. Everything was completely off last night, even the time I went to bed, all that stuff. And this is what's funny, or this is what sort of shows that the scores don't have value to me. So I did get good sleep last night. You can see here, just if you look at the little tiny lines, I went to bed at 11, which is my normal time, woke up at 6:30, my normal time. And the sleep index score and the recovery score was the same as yesterday. Even if you were to look at the HRV, it was 26, it was much higher, or in general is a higher trend than it would have been, or it has been in a while. And you can see the comparison between yesterday plummeting, good at HRV today, and then on the recovery, basically the same score as yesterday, even though totally different dynamics. Yesterday I went to bed at midnight, I had food and alcohol, and my HRV reflected that at a plummeting score when I woke up Sunday morning, as well as tonight. Last night, more balanced, everything better, all the numbers better, but the sleep score and the recovery score about the same. So you can see that had a terrible recovery. I was doing poorly, stayed up late, ate, drank late, all that stuff, didn't get good sleep, total disruption to my normal sleep schedule when I go to bed, and it gave me a good score. And then all the other devices were giving me a terrible score. And then on the flip side, got great sleep, or felt like I had great sleep, felt good recovery, all that sort of stuff. And it gave me the same score. All the other devices said, hey, you did great last night, or you slept well, but it gave me the same score. And I just think, okay, well then your score is unreliable. Your score can't be trusted because it's the same whether you do well. And that is a major concern. That's a major factor. And I worked with the designers, or I have a good connection with the people that are working on it to see if they can maybe adjust that, because it should absolutely fail you at times. Like if a device doesn't like fail you, then it isn't totally trustworthy, because there are times when you fail. There's times when your body is failing, and you need to have a device that kind of gauges that and says, how bad of a failure is this? Because that's where you can sort of take that relevant difference into your training the next day, or into your focus on recovery over the next couple of nights, is like a device that more accurately or some way assesses the severity of your failure. That's one issue. The other issue is that it ties this movement index, and it doesn't take into account outside activities, and it doesn't work for workouts, or at least it hasn't for me. So for me, it was like, if I tried to use it for a workout, it would not track the heart rate. And obviously in doing barbell work and a lot of heavier intense dumbbell work, all that sort of stuff, it's a pain. It does not feel comfortable to wear in a workout like that. So even if it did work, and it didn't, even if it did work, it would feel not great to wear in a workout, but it also didn't work. So that sort of brings those two together, and then it keeps telling me my movement is low for the day because
lap 1, 33:36.
That is incredibly loud. But it tells me my movement index is down, and so it doesn't take into account activities that are pulling in from outside, pulling in from outdoor apps, from other devices that I am using. And so it's not taking into account the fact that I had rigorous workouts where the data was pulled in, and you can see the workout reflected on the Ultrahuman app, but it still said my movement index, which is just like my walking around index. And if I maybe recorded a workout through that, it would gauge that, but it still says my movement index needs attention all the time. So I had to turn down my athletic activity on my profile. So I basically said, I'm just low active, non-active person. And it's like, okay, your movement index is doing fine, because it's just counting my steps and just looking at how much I'm, just like getting up and around throughout the day as my baseline for the analysis. And all that just doesn't help me. It doesn't do anything at all for me. So those are the primary things. So it doesn't work, in my opinion, in a workout, especially if you're doing higher intensity, if you're doing anything that has finger movement, or you use a barbell, or you're gripping something like a handlebar or something like that. And the movement index doesn't take into account activities that are imported directly into the app. But the bigger thing is the scores continue just to be high, even though they shouldn't be high. A minor dissatisfaction area that I have is the fact that it's not easy to charge necessarily. Like it doesn't automatically, it takes time, like 2 hours to charge. I have forgotten that I had put it on the charger, and I guess that's just sort of a me problem. But compared to all the other devices I'm testing, sometimes I wish that it was easier or faster to charge, so that I could just knock it out by taking it off during the shower every day. So like if you just take it off during shower times, it won't stay charged, it'll eventually die. So those are the initial thoughts on the Ultrahuman ring. Those are the initial thoughts on the app and the pros and cons. So let me know if you have tested the Ultrahuman and compared it to the Oura and your thoughts on it. And it's Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.